Hey Fondies, today we're creating Elmer Elephant, the sweetest little fondant topper with the biggest personality. So grab your tools and let's bring this cutie to life one step at a time. First up, we're making a little backdrop for Elmer to sit on. I didn't want him just floating out here in the world all by himself. I'm using a 3-inch scallop cutter and adding some texture with an impression mat just to give it a little extra oomph. Never underestimate your background pieces. Sometimes those small details are what pull the entire design together. Once this is finished, we'll let it rest and move right into creating sweet little elephant Elmer. We'll start by creating the base shape for Elmer's head. Now, don't worry about perfection right here. We'll continue refining and adding details as we go along. I'm going to start by defining exactly where the eyes will sit. Taking a little extra time here helps create depth and gives your character a more expressive look. So take your time, rewind, and watch this section as often as you need to. Next, I'm going to be adding the whites of the eyes. This immediately starts bringing some life and softness to Elmer's sweet little face. Make sure to check how much white you're putting into the socket. It should sit firmly inside of the space that you created and not bulge out at all. Now we're going to add the blue part of his eyes. I wanted his eyes to coordinate with the accents in his ears and the little bow that we'll be adding on later. Feel free to change the color of his eyes bow and his inner ear to match whatever your color theme is. Next are the pupils. It's amazing how such a small detail can instantly begin to create personality along with expression. And to finish his eyes, I'm adding the water line and defining around each eye. These final details really make the eyes pop and give Elmer that sweet animated look. Note that I did roll one single little rope and I divided it in two so that I can have two identical pieces to use for both eyes. And just like that, our little elephant is finally starting to look back at us. Adding the brows and other facial features gives him even more character. Don't be afraid to play around until you get the expression you love and the one that you want. The shape of the eyebrows can completely change the expression on your character. So play around with them, see what you like, see what you're going for, and be creative. Also, remember, brows do not have to be twins, they only have to be sisters. I also added a little detail at the corner of each eye just to give him a little bit more expression and playfulness. Next, we're creating Elmer's trunk. I like to retrofit the trunk to the face before permanently attaching it. This gives me a chance to play with the size, curve, and positioning until I get the exact look I'm going for. Using a balling tool, I'm creating the opening at the top of the trunk and adding a little dimension. A small amount of Tylose or CMC powder mixed into your fondant will also help the trunk hold its shape nicely while it dries. Don't be afraid to move things around a bit. A slight tilt up, down, or to the side can completely change your character's expressions. Before moving on, don't forget to add a few wrinkle lines to the trunk. These little details add texture, realism, and help bring sweet little Elmer to life. Next, I'm adding a small mouth opening just beneath the trunk. I'm using my Dresden tool for this step because it gives me just the right amount of control. Remember, less is more right here. The mouth does not need to be too large or overly styled. A simple, subtle opening is often all you need to create a sweet expression. Take a moment to play with it until you're happy with the look. Sometimes the smallest details can completely change the personality of your character. Now for the tongue, I mixed red and pink fondant together to create a soft shade and added just a small piece to enhance his playful expression. Now throughout this entire project, I'm only using plain water to attach my pieces. Now we're adding tiny little specks to the eyes. It's amazing how something so small can make such a big difference and really bring your character to life. Now I'm using the tiniest piece of white fondant for this step and cutting them with a number 5 Wilton piping tip to keep them nice and uniform. Now be careful with your water here. You only need the slightest amount. Too much moisture can cause smearing, and we definitely don't want that. Next, we're creating Elmer's ears. For my elephant, whose head measures approximately 2.75 inches, I used a 2.5 inch cutter for the outer ears and a 1.5 inch cutter for the inner portions. Your size may vary depending on the size of your character, so feel free to adjust accordingly. Now, pay attention to how I'm positioning the ears. I put them slightly underneath the head rather than directly on the sides. This gives a much more realistic and natural appearance. I also use small pieces of rolled paper towel to support the ears while they dry. I personally like my ears to have a little movement and curve rather than sitting completely flat. That gentle motion adds so much personality and charm to our little elephant. Next, we're adding Elmer's little curls. I simply roll thin pieces of fondant around the handle of a brush to create these fun shapes. One little tip, leave the curls on the brush handle while you're positioning and attaching them. It makes application so much easier and helps them keep their shape. As you can see me doing here, I only remove them once I'm happy with the placement. This step may take a little practice and patience, so don't be afraid to rewind and try again. Those sweet little curls add so much personality and are absolutely worth the extra effort. Also, if needed during this process, you can reposition and add a little bit more movement and texture to your little elephant's ears, as you see me doing here. Now the bow. Start by rolling out a thin piece of fondant and adding texture if you'd like. Then you want to cut two equal strips approximately 3/4 of an inch wide by about 3 inches long. Find the center of each strip and gather it together almost like you're creating a little W shape. You'll want to repeat the same W pattern on each end, adding a small amount of water to secure everything in place. Repeat these steps for your second bow loop as well. Bows can definitely take a little patience, so don't be discouraged if you don't get it together completely the first time. And trust, rewind, rewatch, and repeat if needed. Bow making is definitely one of those skills that gets easier with practice. You want to take a little bit of water to secure the two bows together. I am using my Dresden tool to help me press them together so that I don't get them out of shape while I'm doing this process. Don't forget you also need a small piece of fondant as the middle of your bow. It's a very small piece, so use whatever size you need to accommodate the size bow that you create. Add a little water and attach both bows together using that center piece. Now you want to add just a little bit of water to your elephant to secure your bow. Always remember to retrofit everything before you glue it in, just to make sure everything is perfect for your little elephant. And now my favorite part, the dusting. This is where everything really starts to come to life. I'm using Petal Crafts Petal Dust to add dimension, depth, and those beautiful little highlights that give my characters that soft 3D look I love so much. Don't be afraid to build your colors slowly. You can always add more, but it's much harder to take it away. Now pay attention to the areas around the trunk, ears, cheeks, and eyes. These subtle shadows and highlights are what create movement and really enhance the personality of your piece. This step always feels like magic to me because suddenly little Elmer goes from cute to absolutely full of life. Well, look at us. We've turned a little bit of fondant into sweet little Elmer Elephant. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoy creating it for you. Remember, bows take practice, curls take patience, and a little dusting can work miracles. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, let's put a bow on this thing and wrap it up. Ciao, ciao for now.